Your tricks won't work today, Xi Jinping. That title is not clickbait, and I have these screenshots to prove it. I was indeed contacted by Chinese agents not once, but twice, actually. I know we all like to joke that I am some kind of CIA plant or something, but this is actually real, so story time. So yes, I was contacted by Chinese agents trying to get classified information out of me. Spoiler alert, I don't have any. I also didn't give any, and despite that, the US government still got pissed at me. So what is a man to do? Well, at least I don't know anything that you couldn't already find on a War Thunder forum already. This video is going to be a little different than my normal ones, but I'll be telling my story and then covering some of the idiots who actually fell for this stuff and gave information to the old Chinese. This whole thing was actually something I had forgotten about completely until somewhat recently I got a phone call from saying I needed to come down to for a nice little chit chat. How got my phone number? Who knows, but being owned by the DoD for 10 years probably made their job a little easier. See, I was told very explicitly not to mention names or agencies when making this video, and also I doubt that the incredibly generic name of the investigator that was given to me was actually their real name. And yes, I did ask permission to make this video because the First Amendment kind of goes out the door when the old gets involved. They told me on the phone the reason they wanted to interview me, which I will not mention here. Though, when I asked around other people who fell into that same category that they mentioned of potential interviewees, no one had been contacted at all. So what do I think was the real reason they interviewed me? But before I answer that question, I need to first talk about today's sponsor. You know them, you love them, Venture Surplus. And wouldn't you know it, we are now 2 for 2 on MRE ads this month. There aren't a lot of military items more iconic or controversial than the MRE. Some people love them, some people hate them. Either way, these meals are ready to eat and are great in survival situations, prepping, hunting, shit hit the fan scenarios, camping, the list goes on. Everyone should have at least a few weeks worth of emergency meals stashed away, and now's the time to do it. Venture Surplus has a huge selection of USGI MREs and other freeze-dried meals that have 5 to 30 years shelf lives, meaning they are older than most of my audience. Stock up now and be ready for anything, and make sure to use the coupon code JUSTIN10 for an additional 10% off your MRE order. But they also have a lot of other proven bits of kit at really good prices, and I was buying from them for a long time before they were a sponsor. So thank you to Venture Surplus, and now back to the video. So why did I think was really interested in talking to me for some reason? This guy right here, Albert Chen, or should I say Albert Chen. And let me set the stage real quick. Around 2023, I was still an active duty Army captain, but I was planning on getting out the next year. So I did what any good soldier is getting out does, and I start looking for potential employment. I've been doing YouTube for a while and was still working with Task and Purpose at the time, and figured I wanted to stay in this space rather than doing the generic thing that military officers do, which is go get an MBA somewhere and make PowerPoints for the rest of their lives. Nothing wrong with that, just not for me. I don't look good in sweater vests and I don't own any chino pants. Just to cast as wide an employment net as possible, I signed up for this website called Upwork, which has a lot of freelance temporary jobs that I figured I could get under my belt and get some more experience for the following year. I labeled myself as a military content writer and researcher, which I was and still am, and started looking around. And it wasn't too long until old Albert here contacted me. He said I should check out his job posting, which was a $3,000 analysis on the situation of Taiwanese security and a nice 3-page report. For reference, that was nearly 6 times what I would normally get paid for research at the time and less than half of the length. Not a bad deal, right? When a man who looks like this with the last name Chen asks you for security details on Taiwan, the BS meter starts a blinking, especially when they're based out of Hong Kong and only refer to this as the project. I knew that at best this was a scam and at worst a literal PRC information op, but damn if I was not curious how this would go. In a past life, I was probably the one caveman that the other caveman used to test out if certain berries were poisonous or not because damn it, I just had to know. I agreed to let his manager message me and then received this message from a one Olga McGuire, which everyone knows is an incredibly common name in the United States. That was sarcasm for those of you who didn't catch that. The only thing that would have been less convincing than the fake name Olga McGuire would have been Dr. Jimmy the Chinese Spy Jones. I could be wrong though, maybe there are a ton of people with Chinese area codes named Olga. It's a big world out there, you never know. Wasting no time, my first question was, who exactly was this for? To which she said it was confidential information, and I would only know once it was published. She then asked to set up a call to figure out my quote, connections levels, which translates to how much classified shit do you know and secret squirrel people do you have in your social circle? The answer to both of which is none, by the way. Unless you count the schizophrenic man who keeps emailing me claiming he has contacts in the CIA. I haven't been convinced by him yet, though. Realizing I wasn't going to get anywhere, I told her I wouldn't be working with some unknown organization and said, "Hope you the best," a line I borrowed from every girl who has ever dumped me. Now, I need to preface what I'm about to say next by saying I really enjoy messing with strangers online. Anytime I get a spam call or text where I'm talking to an actual person and not an AI bot, I will make that person regret reaching out to me. What does that say about me as a human, that I take pleasure in annoying and angering malignant actors on the internet? Not sure. Probably nothing good, but I refuse to deny who I am deep down. On February 23rd, 2024, I had a few drinks as one does, and I messaged Olga that I missed her, hoping to confuse this person with my romantic texts. She responded by saying that I must have sent the message by mistake. I then doubled down saying that in fact it wasn't a mistake, and that I missed her ambiguous ethnic name and Hong Kong phone number, and then asked for a selfie like one does. She never responded back. Now, when the nice people at were interrogating me, they were very quickly pivoted from the original reason why they called me in to asking very specific questions that made it very obvious that my name and information was found somewhere during some other investigation. What I assume happened is that some contact list built by Chinese intelligence included me, which is why they reached out to see if I told them anything, which I didn't. I used the word interrogating, which brings up images of dark rooms with bare light bulbs and true crime YouTube channels, but the reality is it was just me being hounded with questions in their coffee break room, which was probably bugged to high heaven. They were very interested in the first set of messages and took a lot of notes, but seemed very confused and suspicious as to why I started flirting with this person. Let me just tell you, it was very hard to explain to that I very much enjoy fucking with people, and that I wasn't actually trying to begin a romantic entanglement with a Chinese intelligence agency. I was just bored and probably drunk. I can tell you now that they did not find it nearly as humorous as I did. The exact words were, quote, "Can you explain these messages?" To which I responded, no. But that was only the first time I got contacted by what I assumed to be government-funded ne'er-do-wells trying to squeeze me for classified information that I do not have. At quite literally the exact same time, I was contacted by a man named Vincent Lee. And I guess the Chinese playbook is super white-sounding first name and generic Chinese last name. Vincent, however, claimed to be working for Semaphore News. Semaphore News is a real news agency, and it's named after the communication method where you wave flags around to spell letters. I bet you didn't know that. See, you learn so much on this channel. Now, pulling the screenshot now, it says that he is located at the Washington courthouse. Likely story, because it originally also was listed as being in Hong Kong. What was he offering, you might ask? The role of researcher on global issues, for which I would have been paid a fat $100,000 allegedly for, and it would take less than a month. What an incredible deal. Surely I am just both lucky and very talented, right? Well, poor Vincent spun me a nice little web about how they want to do defense-related topics, but darn it, they just don't have enough people. We chatted for a bit, and he offered a video meeting, which I then took. Now, I don't have any screenshots from that meeting, but it consisted of a Chinese man very obviously trying to hide a very Chinese accent with the video quality that rivaled that of a Nintendo 3DS camera. He said he was going to send me a packet of info on what they wanted me to write about, and then I got an email from a proton.me email address. For those of you unfamiliar, Proton.me is an encrypted email service based out of Switzerland and is better suited for coordinating cartel operations and human smuggling services than it is an innocent old job offer. He sent me an encrypted attachment simply titled proposal.rar. The file itself was a very sketchy PDF detailing that they wanted me to give information on the American Special Forces that were just sent to Taiwan at the time. Now then, that fact wasn't something classified. It had been in the news a little bit already. But they specifically wanted information that they described as not available to the media or already published, aka the classified stuff. They wanted to know how many special boys were being sent, what kind of anti-aircraft and anti-ship missile technology they were bringing with them, and how long they planned on staying. In case you were wondering, details on things like troop movements, activities, timetables, and action is already classified information. And when you add on the fact that this information would revolve around special operations soldiers in a part of the world as sensitive as the Taiwanese Strait, the punishment for this goes from jail cell to hole in the ground and concrete poured over you. I informed our friend Vincent about this, to which he reassured me that everything would be super safe and there was no risk of this being leaked or attributed to me, to which I essentially told him to fuck off, because I knew that at that point I had reached the limit of "this is fun, I wonder where it goes," and entered into "I am now going to be violating the Espionage Act" realm. I considered giving them very obviously wrong information, like how Green Berets were teaming up with raccoon-human hybrid soldiers that would ambush Chinese soldiers from dumpsters, but sadly I did the right thing and just reported it to my local OPSEC people instead. I'm all for committing to a bit, but not if it lands me in a Cuban black site prison. To date, I have not been contacted anymore, probably because they realized I was both uncooperative and not useful. For reference, never once in my career did I ever have a top secret clearance. My job was focused more on telling people to blow stuff up with a 50-year-old 20mm chain gun than it was knowing what the F-35 stealth coating was made out of or what Green Berets had for lunch last Wednesday. After telling all of these stories to the nice people at I sent them screenshots of everything in the encrypted file and went about my day, and didn't hear from them again until I reached out to ask if I could make this video. I will say that towards the end, I started wondering if they were trying to do some kind of psychological tricks on me with leading questions and buttering me up with compliments and whatnot, which made me overthink how I was responding to their questions, which probably made me come off even more suspicious. But just like Olga and Vincent and every woman I've ever talked to, they also lost interest in me once they realized I spent my time in the military as a grunt that happened to have a college degree. And to this day, I still don't know what SCIF stands for. However, I am one of many people that have gotten tied up in this. In 2025 alone, this year, there have been 3 convictions of 4 total troops trying to sell precious classified data to China. Jing Kao Wei was arrested in 2023 for selling information about amphibious assault ships, specifically how they're set up and where to hit them if you want to disable one, and technical manuals for the Aegis class systems. He was paid over 15 grand for this. Don't do that. A one Wen Hen Zhao was given exactly $14,866 for detailed operational schedules of the Navy's Pacific Fleet. Big no-no there. Chi Jiaoqun, a U.S. Army reservist, was caught helping Chinese agents recruit American aerospace engineers and defense contractors. He was only paid a few $100 per person, but identified vulnerable individuals who both had access to classified material and would probably be willing to hand them over. According to official DoD policy, people are considered high risk for foreign recruitment are those with lots of debt, recent divorces, those who complain at work a lot, and people who spend money on things like cars and vacations well outside of their means. However, by that definition, the entire United States military is a potential insider threat. According to the Center of Strategic and International Studies, since the year 2013, when Xi Jinping took office as president, one of his first acts was to repurpose and reorient China's collection priority to better serve long-term goals. A big portion of that has been a shift from private corporate espionage to state-sponsored government espionage. There have been 224 confirmed cases of Chinese military and political spy-related events, and those are the only ones we've caught so far. However, 69% nice of those have been since 2013, when he made that specific policy change. But I will say, having seen both sides of this phenomena, if you want to call it that, has certainly been, well, interesting at least. Because when people read these stories of people selling off state secrets, a lot of the time we imagine some random person in uniform having secret meetings in shady hotel rooms with Chinese spies, and that does happen, but it also makes me wonder how many were just tricked into it via the way they tried to trick me. Obviously, no matter your intention, trading classified information for money is a really fucking stupid thing to do. But it makes me think that surely some of them thought they were talking to someone working for an accredited news agency, perhaps, and that the information they were giving was ultimately harmless. I should say that my intention by saying that wasn't to make you feel bad for these guys. You absolutely shouldn't. They're stupid pieces of shit. It just more so shows that it's a lot more nefarious and dangerous than we imagine it is on the surface. China's not just dangling money in front of people's faces. They're going through the effort of hiding their tracks, their sources, and putting up fronts to make everything seem all legit. So remember kids, 15 grand or internet clout is never a good reason to give away classified information, and always practice good OPSEC. Now stay tuned for the next video where I get paid 10 bucks every time I read off the numbers on the back of my old military ID. And on that note, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's rather unique video. Please subscribe and I will see you in the next one.